Script 35 ***. Take a step back for a second, because what's happening around Yulong and Yang right now only really makes sense if you zoom out and look at how the entire short drama economy in China has been accelerating through 2025 into 2026, especially under pressure from new regulations, shifting monetization models, and platform competition that has quietly forced creators and actors to adapt faster than audiences even realize. The conversation in fan spaces has started catching up to this, and instead of focusing only on scenes or chemistry, people are now connecting their visibility to industry-wide changes that are still unfolding. One of the biggest undercurrents comes from policy shifts targeting the microdrama sector, where authorities began tightening oversight on low-quality or overly sensational content, particularly vertical dramas designed for rapid consumption. This didn't shut the industry down, it forced it to evolve. Production teams began refining pacing, adjusting narrative structures, and rethinking how emotional hooks are delivered within extremely short runtimes. And this is where Yulong and Yang re-enter the conversation, not as isolated actors, but as participants in a system that is actively recalibrating itself. Fans started noticing that newer projects featuring them feel slightly more controlled than earlier ones. Not dramatically different, but enough to trigger discussion. Scenes still begin at high emotional intensity, but transitions are sometimes tighter, dialogue slightly more polished, and editing more deliberate in guiding viewer focus. This aligns with broader industry observations that platforms are encouraging content that retains attention without crossing into chaotic or overly exaggerated storytelling, which had become common in earlier waves of microdramas. At the same time, monetization models have been shifting, especially through paid unlocking systems where viewers must purchase access to later episodes. This has had a direct impact on how scenes are structured. The most emotionally charged moments are increasingly placed just before paywalls, creating what fans describe as forced continuation triggers. And when people started mapping where Yulong and Yang most talked about scenes appear, a pattern emerged. They often sit right at these structural pressure points. This doesn't necessarily mean the actors are choosing these moments, but it does mean their performances are being inserted into positions where viewer behavior is most valuable. If a scene featuring them causes hesitation, debate, or emotional tension right before a paywall, it increases the likelihood that viewers will continue watching, which directly affects revenue. So now the discussion isn't just about acting or chemistry, it's about placement within a monetized narrative structure. Then there's the competition factor. The vertical drama market has become saturated with new pairings, many of them younger, more aggressively marketed, and designed to capture attention quickly. Some of these newer CPS rely heavily on exaggerated emotional delivery and highly stylized interactions, which generate immediate reactions but often fade just as quickly. Against that backdrop, Yulong and Yang are increasingly being described in fan discussions as low-volatility performers, meaning they don't spike as dramatically, but they also don't disappear. This comparison has created a split in audience perception. One side argues that newer pairings feel more exciting and visually striking, especially in short clips designed for rapid consumption. The other side claims that those same qualities make them less sustainable, because once the novelty wears off, there's nothing left to analyze or revisit. Yulong and Yang, by contrast, continue generating discussion precisely because their performances don't resolve cleanly, leaving room for interpretation. Platform behavior reinforces this divide. Highly stylized clips tend to perform well in initial distribution, capturing attention quickly, but ambiguous or slightly uneven scenes tend to perform better over time, because they invite repeated engagement. This creates a two-phase visibility model, immediate spike versus prolonged circulation. And in many cases, Yu Long and Yang Mie seem to fall into the second category. Another layer that fans have started dissecting is editing style. In several recent projects, viewers noticed that reaction shots involving Yang Mie are held slightly longer than expected, sometimes extending just enough to create uncertainty about whether the emotion has fully landed. These extended frames often become the most discussed parts of a clip, precisely because they feel unresolved. Some interpret this as deliberate editing designed to maximize engagement, while others see it as a byproduct of performance style interacting with pacing constraints. Yu Long scenes, on the other hand, tend to anchor these moments, providing a clearer emotional baseline that contrasts with the ambiguity. This dynamic has led to a recurring interpretation that their pairing functions as a balance between clarity and uncertainty, where one stabilizes the scene and the other destabilizes it just enough to keep viewers engaged. Meanwhile, outside of performance analysis, there's a growing awareness of how distribution networks operate across platforms. Clips don't just stay within one app, they migrate. A scene might start on Douyin, get reposted on Kuaishou, then appear in edited form on Xiao Hongshu or even international platforms. Each transition introduces new audiences who reinterpret the content without original context, often focusing only on the most striking or confusing moments. This cross-platform migration amplifies certain types of scenes over others. Clear, self-contained moments travel well, but so do ambiguous ones that spark curiosity. Scenes that rely heavily on narrative context, however, tend to lose impact outside their original format. This is another reason why Yu Long and Yang Mie's most discussed moments are often those that can survive fragmentation. And this leads to one of the more complex debates currently unfolding in fan spaces, whether actors in this ecosystem are adapting to the platform, or whether the platform is selecting for specific acting styles over time. Some argue that performers who naturally align with these mechanics, whether through timing, expression, or scene construction, are more likely to be amplified, regardless of traditional acting metrics. Others believe that actors gradually adjust their performances once they understand what generates engagement, consciously or unconsciously optimizing for visibility. There's no clear answer, but the fact that this question is being asked at all shows how much the conversation has evolved. It's no longer just about whether a scene works, it's about why it spreads. And that brings everything back to Yu Long and Yang Mie. They're not the loudest, not the most polished, not the most heavily promoted in the traditional sense. But they exist at the intersection of multiple forces, algorithmic amplification, monetization pressure, evolving production standards, and audience behavior that increasingly values moments over narratives. So the next time you see one of their scenes circulating, pause for a second, not just to watch it, but to notice what it's doing to you as a viewer. Did you replay it or question it? Did you feel the need to read comments to understand it better? Because if you did, then you're not just watching the content, you're participating in the system that keeps it alive. And that's where this entire story becomes bigger than two actors. It becomes about the invisible mechanics shaping what we see, what we remember, and what we keep coming back to, even when we're not entirely sure why. So now I'll leave you with this: when you scroll past the next clip, will you recognize what made you stop, or will the system keep working exactly as intended? Think about it, and I'll see you in the next one.